I'm joined in studio by a political analyst and emeritus professor at Wits University. That's Professor Susan Booysen, no stranger to the show, and also someone else who's no stranger to the show is the constitutional law expert from the University of Limpopo. That's Advocate Lufuno Nevondwe. There he is there and ready to speak to us. So good evening to you both, and thank you so much for your time. Prof, perhaps I start with you. This ruling, it appeared to have taken some by surprise, and others said no, they actually were expecting that he'd be granted the interdict. Your take? Are you surprised?
Yes, it really cuts in both directions. We knew that there was serious opposition. We knew that the lawyers put some very convincing cases on both fronts forward in the court a few days ago. And we couldn't quite tell, as political analysts at least, couldn't quite tell in what direction this is going to swing. We know this case is not going to go away. We know the report is flawed. But we know there isn't a clear-cut, easy answer. And whatever the court cases go, whatever the parliamentary proceedings do next, and yes, they are going to continue, we also know where there are going to be delays. There are, in all likelihood, going to be appeals. Whichever side wins the review, the other side is not going to be happy. So it's simultaneously it takes time, and won't be surprised, definitely not, if it goes into next year.
It sounds like a long haul, right? It really does.
It is.
And Advocate, for you, as I bring you in right on that point, because when you listen to the chairperson of the Impeachment Committee, he seems to believe that his work can continue. But you do have a concern from others who are saying that listening to the the ruling, they are concerned as to how much of room will they have as the Impeachment Committee to move around. Perhaps we start there with you.
I think in terms of the judgment, the impeachment hearings are halted, but the preparatory work can still continue behind the scene. Preparatory work, I'm referring to the adoption of the terms of reference, the appointment of the evidence leaders, but it must happen behind the scene. We must underline that. So which means that the whole process is halted. It's only some of the administrative work or ground rules, some of the administrative work which will continue. And I think the Impeachment Committee must be careful there, because they might be in contempt of court if they are seen to be undermining the court judgment, because the court judgment holds the impeachment hearings, that they must not continue. There must not be calling of witnesses. There must not be evidence which must be laid.
So I suppose then, before I bring in Prof, Advocate, that kind of constrains them when it comes to the work that they need to do. So perhaps one then casts an eye now to September. The review is going to be heard, and as Prof says, should it, perhaps go either way, whether the president loses there, he won't be happy. Most likely he will appeal. If he is successful, most likely we are to see an appeal from the, the defense as well. So by all indications, it seems like this may just be an issue that may go on for quite some time.
Yeah, it will go on for quite some time, because all parties are going to appeal. Either the president, the ruling is not in favor of the president, he will appeal. If the ruling is not in favor of parliament and opposition parties, they are going to appeal. Remember, the president has laid down the grounds for review. He has said that the independent panel report has misconception of mandate. There was an error of law. There was unfounded fact findings. So those are some of the grounds for review which has been laid down by the president. Yeah. Whether those grounds they are going to stand the test of time, it remains to be seen, because the Section 89 independent panel report must pass the constitutional test. Whether this report is going to stand the Constitution, or whether it's going to be set aside. So it will depend on the arguments from the president and the arguments from parliament and opposition parties.
Especially because, even as you say, there was that question to say it answered the wrong question, and even with the issue of evidence, etc. But I'm going to circle back to that in just a moment. Prof, politically, How do these political parties navigate this moment? Because as Advocate says, they have to be careful not to be in contempt of court, but also at the same time, these are parties that want this process to continue and they don't want the work of Parliament to be delayed.
Yes, exactly. And in the first place, I was actually surprised about how little the judgment this morning had to say about what can continue and what cannot continue. There was just the scantest of reference to public hearings must not continue. And I agree with the Advocate, there's a lot of work, but carefully, that can proceed. In terms of reference, there's a lot of work that has to be done on that. I think it would also be fine to have deliberations on what kind of witnesses should be called. I've already talked a bit about what kind of forensics and financial experts to call. So there's quite a bit that can continue. And the important part for the continuity is that this case is not going to go away. And in many ways, the parties opposing the president's interdict, they have a field day as we are going about it now, because it's such a big issue, it's hovering, there's no legal process that goes in a specific fast direction. So the political parties are really can make a field day out of the innuendo and suspicions and uncertainties that hang in the air.
So, Prof, before I circle back to the Advocate, when you look at the issue of harm, it's something that was spoken about quite a lot, and even in the judgment as well, speaking about the apprehension to fears of injury, etc. One wonders, though, in your view, in the court of public opinion, how much impact has this had, this particular Phala saga?
It already has had and continues to have a massive impact. You know, so much of the fact, even irrespective of the report possibly being flawed in law and fact, as President Ramaphosa's representatives have pointed out, have argued, it is out there, the basics remain there. And even if technically and legally the President could be exonerated, could escape the axe here, it is not going to go away, and it's going to be with the President and his party all along.
Advocate, when we look at the balance that the court has had to strike here, I mean, I'm thinking about an issue, a balance of convenience and separation of powers, and the fact that we had, 3 judgments, 2 in the majority and 1 in the minority. What are we to read into all of that as well?
Yeah, it shows us that there is a different interpretation, even amongst the judges, because the first judgment dismiss the urgent relief, while the second and third judgments ruled in favor of the president. So it shows that there is a bit of interpretation here. But we must remember that the principle or the doctrine of separation of powers is one of the foundation of a constitutional democracy. It talks about that the 3 branches of government, the parliament, the executive, and the judiciary, they have a role and responsibilities in terms of the constitution. And this branch supervise each other. But the courts, the judiciary, supervise the executive and the parliament when they are not doing its work. Because the court will normally take a decision which decide on the conduct of parliament, or also a decision which decide on the conduct of the executive. We have seen decisions of courts. In the case of Grootboom case, which was ruled in the year 2000, it was the right of adequate to housing, where the executive was ordered to provide adequate housing. The case of President Zuma versus Parliament, where Parliament was found not to have executed their mandate to hold the president accountable, which they have that responsibility.
So it sounds like, yeah, as both of you say, a long road ahead. And Prof, thank you so much for pairing with us. And also, advocates, appreciate your time. So as you say, Prof, it seems like it's going to be a long road ahead. And there's a lot to talk about as far as the story is concerned. So thank you so much to you both for coming through. That is the University of Limpopo advocate, Lufuno Nevondwe, and political analyst here in studio with us, an Emeritus Professor at Wits University, Professor Susan Booysen, speaking to us about this very significant story. So we do have more for you as far as the story is concerned.